Equalizing, or EQing for short, is one of the most difficult and important tasks a mixing engineer does. Sculpting a track to get good tonality is one thing, but sculpting it to sound good when blended with other tracks is another. Blue Cat's FreqAnalyst Multi makes the job of pinpointing troublesome clashing frequencies much easier. And if you're mastering your own music, it makes that EQ job faster as well. Installation of this plugin was a breeze, no problems at all there. There's no dongle required, no iLock, no iPatch, none of that. At the time of this review, the plugin is available as Windows and Mac AAX, Real-Time Audio Suite, and VST, as well as DirectX on Windows and audio units on the Mac. Yes, 64-bit support is there. I never used the original version of this plugin, so I can't comment on how it compares to that first version. However, from the product literature, it says that it's a new GUI that's skinnable. There's been lots of enhancements to readability. A plugin instance sync button has been made, and there's been a lot of CPU usage reduction. So a lot of little improvements that add up to a better product. For this video, I'm using the demo version of this plugin, so it's limited to 3 instances only, and the meter will reset every 40 seconds, which is a little annoying, but it is what it is. When you first load this plugin, you get this screen, which is your channel routing, which is great because it's the first thing you have to set up. So what I like to do is first go up to here under the presets and change the naming to whatever the track is. In this case, I am going to do the bass. So that renames just these tracks because it's mono. It doesn't need to do anything down here. So I'm going to choose number 10 and I'm going to do it for average. I'll close that out. Okay. Starting at the top, we have our universal preset plugin menu. So this is universal to any of Blue Cat's plugins. I don't really use it that often, but it's there. It's basically a secondary menu to this over here, but with a few more things. The manual's here. There's an automatic update button. And by automatic, I mean I think it takes you to their website. And there's a get more skins page and about. So all that good stuff. Okay, starting right here. For some reason that just turned off. Okay, so apparently that button also bypasses. But anyway, this is the bypass button. And it obviously just turns the plugin on and off. This is a cool feature. It's a opacity knob, which comes in handy, believe it or not, just to, clear up some more screen real estate space. It's a little hard if you could do this and then take your finger off the mouse button, so I would recommend not going that low. I'm going to keep it to 100 for this entire tutorial, or this entire review. Next, the show control settings. Those are all down here. So when you click that, actually it gets rid of the MIDI controls that are down here. So I don't really use those. So you can keep them on, keep them off. It doesn't really annoy me to have them on, so I'm gonna just leave it like that. Show controls. Okay, it's show controls settings and then show controls. So show controls actually gets rid of that, so you get a little bit more real estate space here. If you double click, then it pops a plugin out of Reaper. And I'm going to just go back to Reaper. Come on. Getting ahead of myself here. Okay, so I'm going to bring back the controls and go right down here, Spectrum View. You can click that, and then if you click that, it goes to your next view, which is diff view or difference view. And just these buttons, it doesn't matter which one you click. You can click that. It just switches them on and off, on and off. Now, this is the important part. Toggle layout. We can have a dual column, which is this. This is your normal spectrum view, and then this is the difference view. Or you can change it to this, where they're side by side. And you can also have it so it's just single. Okay. So moving on, we have a window size button. All three of these are to just adjust the sizes. Medium, and then large. Wow. That is awesome for my widescreen monitor here. I love this. Most plugins aren't this big, but I like them big. My blind eyes like big plugins. Going right along, the routing matrix, which you've already seen. This is where all the stuff gets selected, which I'll get to later. And then we have a freeze all button, which, as you'll see, once I start playing something here. Not sure why it's not working. Meter was probably resetting. I told you this is a demo and it's annoying. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So that's what the freeze button does. It freezes these so you see what they're doing. I didn't let it play all the way. I'm going to get to that a little bit later. Moving on, we have an undo switch and a redo. This is great. Every plugin should have these, but they don't, unfortunately. But yeah. Again, over here we have the presets. So we have factory presets for analysis settings, layout, names under the matrix, routing under the matrix, and then default. That's my favorite because it resets everything. And then of course you can save your own presets, which they actually give you a good amount. I don't know if this is a joke or what, but see, we have banjo and then we just have Joe. Not sure what that's about, but interesting nonetheless. Okay, going over here, we have the logo, and then we have the manual button, which, by the way, the manual's pretty well written. They have video tutorials on their website. Good stuff. Again, we have another info button. And then down here, I'm just going to go back over here to our zoom in and out. So you can zoom in to the middle. And somebody just started mowing their grass outside my window, so I apologize if you hear that. And then you can zoom in on your decibel range. But I like to keep it zoomed out during initial analysis. At first I was like, well, what do I need to see 120 decibels for? But it really does help to see the entire thing. So I just usually keep it out like that. The other way to zoom is you can just select it. Just like that, and then right click to zoom out. Again, I'll do this, zoom in, and right click to zoom out. Okay, going over here. By the way, you notice up in this section when I had the mouse lower, we have our frequencies, and then we have our notes, and then we also have our amplitude. So good times. Good read out of that. And then we have reset average and reset peak. These come in handy. I'm gonna unfreeze this. These come in really handy. I use this all the time, and you're gonna use this all the time if you use this plugin. The all-important mode button. It saves on CPU power, so I definitely use it. And then down here we had the curves. This is where you set the display. I'm gonna play this again. And as this is playing, you can take that display off. You can take this off and on. Any of these. Bass is off. And again, these are labeled. That's what this plugin's all about, is having everything overlap so you can see, you know, what's going on with all your tracks. And if you don't have anything assigned, all these things that say not connected, it won't show anything. You can also store basically freeze frames in the memory. So I'm going to do it on the lead. The lead is also the vocal. I don't know why I labeled it that, but yeah. So that freezes that. And you can take that off. And if you want to freeze the guitar, you can do that. And then take the actual guitar off. So now we only have one actual waveform or one frequency spectrum going for real. The other ones are frozen. And down here we can choose to display those memories off and on, and that one on and off as well. Pretty simple to use GUI after you get used to it. It took me probably 90 minutes to get used to using this plugin. I'm still not an expert at it, but I'm good enough to be dangerous. So down here we have more options. We have curved display, filled or not. I don't really care, and it only affects your actual real-time playing. It doesn't affect the memory slots. So I'm going to store the bass. I'm curious to see if it stores it as a filled thing. No, it doesn't. Okay. The next thing is anti-aliased. I usually don't keep this filled up. It adds CPU power, and I just don't want to deal with it. The next thing is anti-aliased, which I actually like to keep off. Because watch what happens when I take it off. Brighter. That's not really anti-aliasing. That's more just kind of making things dimmer. I mean, it's a little bit smoother. It's smoother, but dimmer. So if they could keep the same brightness and also anti-alias, that'd be awesome. Down here we have, we can get rid of the names. And we can also get rid of the list that's over here for even more real estate space. Good times. Okay, the rest of the plugin is down here. Hopefully you can see it all. Push, it basically means if you make any changes on any of these buttons, you can then push those settings to the other plugins. And then down here, you see these little red arrows? These are if you just want to push individual settings to the other plugins. This is like an all settings. See, push all settings, and then this is just push value. Precision does what it says it does. I usually don't like to change this to anything above like 7. This plugin really doesn't take up too much CPU power, but when you start getting really, really high resolution with stuff, and you'll see what I mean. It's like it gives you too much information. So I think somewhere around 7 or 8 is good. I've been told for vocals do 9. This also affects resolution, the speed. And I'm gonna tell you all these controls directly from the manual. So speed is the rate of the audio to frequencies transform. The higher this value, the better time resolution and perceived smoothness. Sorry for the pop. Beware that above 100% CPU consumption might increase, especially when the precision is high. Again, I apologize for the lawnmowers. My neighbors decided to cut the grass, and I can't control that. Over here we had the attack switch, which is the attack time for the frequency's envelope follower. And then we had the release. Now usually with this controls, is if you think that this is going too fast, let me get my controls back, my list back. If you have this going on, you know what? I'm gonna change this. We are under bass, so I'm gonna get this under the guitars. I'm changing it to instant, so it's a little bit easier to see what this does. So guitars are now on instant, and you'll see how this goes. Of course, my meter's not working because, again, the demo is giving me issues. And my guitar track is going. That's on. I don't see what the issue is. I think I may have just discovered a bug in this program. And that's if you have your project closed, save it, and then add another instance of this that's not a copy of the other ones, it won't show your other tracks playing. But it was working. It was just working. I don't understand what happened there. I'm gonna reload this project. Okay, I'm not really sure what the issue was there. I went ahead and reloaded the plugin on the 3 tracks, and it's working good now, but I don't know. Okay, there we go. So now I have this, so you can see what this release envelope control does. And I'm gonna slow it down and push this to all the other settings. See how slow that goes now? Doesn't drop as fast as it was. So that's what that does. And attack, I usually don't change that off of 0, but if I did, that's what that does. So again, I'm changing this setting. I'm changing this setting. You can also double click it and type in the name, and then I'm going to change this to 0 and then push this setting and then sync it, and there we go, we're back to default. Peak reset is the rate of the peak curve reset. So if you set it to 0, the peaks will never decrease and will represent the maximum value. And then over here we have the threshold, which you can change, and you'll notice this arrow is changing right here. So you can set the threshold with this if you really want to. I usually just keep it on the default. Relative percentage is, according to the manual, the relative threshold for spectrum display. All frequency bins which value is below this threshold are set to -120 decibels. The slope control, which is over here, is the slope added to the frequency response curve, and it can be used to correct the response curve, for example, to tune the plugin so that pink noise frequency response is flat. See what that's doing? I don't really see a usage for that. It's good to have it, but I don't really see me using it that often. I don't see you using it that often either. But if you need it, it's there. And then finally, the offset is the offset added to the frequency response curve, and that can be used to correct the response curve. And then we also, that's about it. So, I like this plugin. Usually what I like to do for vocals, I'll keep it on average. For guitar, I'll keep it on average. For bass, I'll keep it on average. However, on drums, and I'm talking about the routing matrix here, on drums, I will put it on the peak. Because average drums, if you know drums, drums aren't always moving like other instruments are. There's gaps. So, you know, if there's gaps in the sound, the average is not going to be accurate. So I like to have drums set to peak. If you go right here, channel 1 is left or mid. That just is for mono instruments, so anything that's just one channel. Channel 2 is the right side, and that comes in handy when you want to compare stereo tracks. Channels average, that's for stereo routing as well. It averages the two channels together. And then channels max, that's just the maximum levels between the two channels at all times. Just to give you a point of reference, these are the drum tracks. We have the kick average, the snare average, and the overhead average. I wanted to show you the averages just so you know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to play this now. And of course it's resetting when I hit play. But here we go. So the meter's coming back. And we see that, you know, the kick is much higher than the snare. The snare doesn't have a lot of energy there. The overheads have a little bit of bass. And the snare has more energy right here. And we can zoom in. If you want to get rid of the names, we can do that, just so we're looking at tracks. I like to have the names on though, but if they happen to be covering something up, that's great to have. Right clicking, I'm going to go over here, and the snare looks like it has the most high frequency energy. But again, I don't like average display. So I'm going to change that, and it's relatively simple once you get to know how to do it. Over here, I'm going to hit X, so that frees up the channel. And we're on the kick track right now, so I'm going to change that to peak on the number 1 slot. I'm going to X out of this. We are on a snare. Going back to the matrix. Yeah. Where you at, Neo? So we had 5 selected. I hit X, and I'm going to change this to peak. Again, because snare is a mono channel, I'm going to just use this. And then finally, the overheads, just double checking that they're in stereo mode. And I'm going to change this on channel average. You know what? I kind of do like having the overheads on average because they're picking up all the instruments. So I'm just going to keep that on average. And again, stereo mode. I'm going to check that snare and kick are on stereo or on mono mode. And they're not. Or at least the kick isn't. It wouldn't have mattered anyway because the channel was set to 1. But alright, so I'm going to play this again, and I'm going to reset my average and peaks, and then when it starts playing, I'm going to hit synchronize. Okay, good times. So this helps, to me this helps a lot. Just to show you, you know, the maximum smack that each of these tracks get instead of averaging them. I think it gives you a better representation of the curve. Alright, last thing I'm going to show you is the difference window. Okay, so these are 3 commercial recordings off the same album. One is a up-tempo song. This one is a slower tempo song. And then the bottom one is all up-tempo as well. But that shouldn't matter, because when you're mastering, your spectral information should be pretty close. And that's what we're going to test right now. So this is the main menu, or the main window, and I'm going to click diff view, or I can click this, it doesn't matter. And now we have this. So I'm going to change this. Right here, song 1 is already loaded. Song 2 is already loaded down here. But there's no comparison. So if I hit play right now, it's not going to do anything. I have to compare 2 tracks. Or actually 2 inputs. Because again, you can compare a stereo channel if you go to the routing and you have one set, see channel 1 and channel 2. If you have 2 different things set, you can compare just a stereo mix. But I'm gonna compare song 1 to song 2. And just to show you what's going on here, I'm also gonna have this open like that. Okay. So we have, I believe these are averages. Let me just double check. That one's an average. Okay. So here we go. This will show the difference between the curves. And the important thing is that the shape of the curve is equal, not the actual like differences. You'll see what I mean when I start playing it. And again, the all-important synchronization button. Now watch this develop over time. We can see that song 1, song 2, and song 3 follow a very, very close curve. All like that. And the meter's resetting. Again, this is a demo. So that's going to restart. I'm gonna hit sync again just for fun. But watch how this starts coming down as the song plays. All these start going. And that's really how you have to average this. You just have to play through the entire song. And I would recommend, as you can see, I don't have audio going during this video. I have my speakers down, and that's because that's maxed. But now we have the differences, very, very minimal differences. Unfortunately, I can't get the labels off this way. Now, if I change it so that it's just 1, yeah, here we go. Now I'm going to get the labels off. And switch back to the difference. Okay, see the labels are gone now. And the idea of this, again, these will start flattening out. I'm just going to show you for fun again how flat this can get. See, it's within a 10 decibel range, which is a really, really good thing. That's pretty close. Again, these songs, one's up tempo and the other one is not. So that's pretty close. I'm going to go to the other view now. Spectrum view. Again, this curve. Very, very nice. And what we're looking for, I'm going to get rid of song 3. Zoom in, and we can see a difference here. And go back to diff view. The main difference is in the higher frequencies. And right here. Not really much of a difference though. But let's assume that there was a difference. A much higher difference in this. What we would do is look at this, and all right, we see a dip at 1.2 kilohertz. So I'm going to go back to this, and I'm going to, oh, okay, it already has 1.2 kilohertz pulled up. And I'm going to see my green track is song 2, and that is higher than my other track. So the EQ curve, if you're mastering, will be set to look something along these lines. Now again, these are already mastered tracks. They're really, really close. So if you were to compare two entirely different master jobs, they wouldn't be this close. I'm going to reset this. See how much of a difference that is? And see how it gets like that? And if I look at it over here, it doesn't show me anything there. Probably because I stopped it. But you can see how much of a difference that is now. And that will be your EQ curve. Now, whether you cut or boost, that is based on, again, you got to look at your tracks. So, all right, so we're dipping a lot right here off the bat. Dipping a lot in between 420 or 470 to about 1800. So go back to this view, and our song number 1 is lower right in that region. Oh, the meter reset. Okay, here we go. See how it's lower? It's lower right around that area. So our difference is song 1 is our comparison. So if we were to try to match one of our songs to a commercial track, which is one of the suggestions that Blue Cat says to do, is we would take, we would do the reverse of this curve, I believe is what it's saying. Or if we had the commercial track set for slot number 1 and our own track set to slot number 2, then that's how we would set the curve. That's how I would do it, just so that we could just look at this and be like, okay, I have to boost at 3100 hertz, or I have to boost at 18 kilohertz, between that and 10. You know, it's a very easy way to do match EQ. Again, the way you have to do it is to play the track all the way through, let it average out, and then that'll be your difference curve. And it's a very, very good tool to use when mastering an album, because you want to have all your tracks have spectral balance or spectral proximity, I guess is the right word. So this plugin is about $100, and you can download a demo of it. Check the video description for a link. The non-multi version of this plugin is available free at the time of this video. Again, no dongles required. It's just a simple serial number when you buy the plugin. The closest alternative to this program is Multi-Inspector Free and Multi-Freq Jr., spelled Freek. However, Multi-Inspector's free version only supports 1 sample rate and does not have the number of features as Blue Cat's. Vertex DSP does offer a paid version of Multi-Inspector for about $115 at the time of this review. However, it's only available on the VST and Audio Units platforms, so that's something to think about. Multi-Freq only supports 7 tracks. Plus, the official company website is down at the time of this video, so I don't even know if the developer is still making this plugin. There's a Multi-Freq Pro version. I'm not sure how much that costs, but I couldn't get any information again because the company website's down. And on Multi-Freq Junior, the spectrum analyzer graphs don't overlap, and you can't freeze the graphs. There's no decibel markings, and the window is really, really tiny. So Blue Cat seems like the way to go. It's the cheaper option. It's good. It's proven. I think Blue Cat was the very first company to do multi-overlapping spectrum analyzers. And for people who are mixing in the box and new to this, and they don't know, what plugin or what track is overlapping with which, this is a great way to go. The way I've been using this plugin is to mix first, just like I normally do, except I don't add effects. Now, it doesn't really matter as much with effects. You can add all the effects you want, but I usually like to just get all my balance correct in mono first, frequencies and all that, and then I level balance that. Again, I'm using EQ, I'm using compression, I'm using saturation, anything I normally use except reverb and delay. And then I put this plugin at the very last insert slot after my gain plugin. By the way, if you don't know this already, faders are pretty much the vast majority of the time are post effects, meaning they happen after all of your plugins. So if you have Blue Cat open and you did your level balances with faders, it's not going to detect that. So what you want to do is use a trim plugin like FreeG, RealEQ. If you don't use any of the EQs on RealEQ, then you can just use the gain portion of that plugin. Anything within your FX window, like this, your DAW will vary obviously, but have your trim plugin prior to this and adjust your mix levels that way. Otherwise it won't work right. So again, I think I've said my piece on this plugin. I like it. It gets my 2 thumbs up. Price wise, it's not too bad. Metering plugins, they're not nothing fancy to write home about, like a nice reverb or a nice, insert your cool plugin here, like a nice VSTI. Nothing fancy like that, but metering, when it comes to getting down and dirty with mixing, equalizing is a very tough job, like I said earlier. And this plugin makes things a little bit easier. I think it really comes in handy when mastering, though. I mean, again, these are commercial tracks, and it just shows you how close the curve is, between these 3 songs. This has been Adam for RealHomeRecording.com. I will see you in the next video.